Hey guys, welcome to the Deaf Millennial Chat podcast. I'm so excited to have Terry Storch with us today. How are you, Terry?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. It's exciting to be here and join this podcast.
Me too, me too. Now, Terry, you're the head of what's called Degrati, if that's correct?
Yes, it's our Digerati team, and Digerati is a term that the author Seth Godin coined back in 2006. And it's simply just all things digital. So we think of literati and understand literati as all things literature. His thinking in 2006 was more organizations needed digeratis, someone that's thinking all things digital. So that is the opportunity that I get to serve in and the area of Life Church that I get to lead.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's truly awesome. Today we're really discussing about leadership and what it means to be a leader. What are the great qualities of a leader, and what does that look like? And really, I want to ask you, how do you define leadership and the quality of a good leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. This term leadership can kind of veer people. I've found lots of different paths, lots of different definitions, and I'm actually reading a book right now that is all about leadership, and it has a term in there, kind of defining leadership, that I really love, and it's simply this: is that leadership is scaling the capacity and capability. So kind of our capacity and capability to create outcomes that matter the most. And so leadership is our ability to grow ourselves, grow others, grow organizations, to create the outcomes that matter the most. And when I heard and read that definition, it just put a lot of a lot of uncertainty to rest and made it really clear to me. So I love that.
Yeah, yeah. That's really good, actually. Often when I talk with other people about leadership, it always means someone who can lead, and that's it. That's the only definition, when leadership has so much behind it, so much uh, meaning. And so I love that definition. So I want to ask, from your view, what does a good leadership look like? The quality of a good leadership is.
Yeah, and so what I love about that definition is kind of how it ends. It's to create outcomes that matter the most. So when we think about leadership, I think we need to think about results. We need to think about the outcomes, and even those last two words, outcomes that matter the most,
Mhm.
which is really important, is because we live in a world that, I don't know about you, but it's a busy world. There's lots going on, and activity and busyness doesn't necessarily mean good. We can be really busy with a lot of things that aren't the most important. And so part of leadership goes into being able to kind of filter out those things that might not necessarily be the best, that might not necessarily produce the outcomes that matter the most. And a lot of that comes with wisdom, discernment along those lines of, where am I going to focus? Where am I going to spend my energy to get the outcomes that matter the most?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically prioritizing as well. Uh, Being able to say what needs to come first, what needs to second, and what's last, what for that outcome to be important. I love that. Um, Often in the deaf church, in the deaf ministry, one example that I've had recently when we talked about leadership, um, we have that age gap. We have older people, and then we have young uh, people like me who are new into this ministry and new leadership, and there's often that feeling of tension,
Yeah.
uh, where the older feel like, oh, new people coming in, the younger mean we're done. So how do we necessarily train up leaders without making the group feel, oh, this person will be gone soon because we have a new younger person coming in? So how do we train up leaders like that?
And I think I think it's a great question, and it's an important mindset for older leaders. I will put myself in that category, if you will, all the gray hair, and so I'll put myself in that category, so I can kind of speak from that side. It's a big part for me, is even going back to that definition, scaling the capacity and capability of others, so ourselves, others, and the organization. And so part of leadership is getting out of the way. Part of leadership is my job is to develop those around me and train them up to ultimately replace me. Now, that can be scary as a leader. That can be a little bit frightening if I'm holding on to this role, or I'm holding on to things tightly. But I think that's a mindset that leaders have to have, is that training up others to be able to do my job doesn't mean that I'm not going to do my job anymore. What training up others to be able to do my job today is that every single day, my capacity, this organization, everything that I'm part of continues to grow. And so by empowering and training up leaders to ultimately take my job today, frees me up to bring energy, to bring focus, and to bring myself to the growing opportunities that are in front of us. And so I am not threatened by looking around and seeing my leadership team that are my core that I invest in. I'm not threatened by their leadership growing and even surpassing me in certain areas. It's like I'm surrounded by an amazing group of leaders that are better than me in many pockets and many areas of what they bring their energy to. And that doesn't threaten me. That actually encourages me, and it makes me a better leader. They see things that I might not necessarily see. They bring their wisdom, their insight, their thoughts, and themselves to complete me, and actually to make the team holistically better. So I think it's a major mistake for older leaders to feel threatened by that. I view that they should feel empowered by that, and excited about replicating themselves and developing young leaders.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah, that's good. Yeah, and so often when we feel threatened, and like you said, we feel a little bit scared. That's really more of an internal vulnerability, internal uh, thing that's in us. I think it's natural for us to be scared. It's natural for us to fear. Oh, that means I'm done. But like you said, it's not done. It's just the transferring of the empowerment, and say now my work is really sort of to become like a mentor,
That's right.
um, and an advisor, and a guardian to those who want to step up and to lead. Um, I want to add, maybe if you can share an experience of yours where you had a mishap as a leader and how you overcame that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple things that immediately come to mind. One, just kind of an anecdotal example in what we're talking about here. And I could probably spend time and think of very specific things that this is kind of bit me, but it's just looking back over the multiple decades of being in a leadership type role and not really embracing what we're talking about now, and being hung up a little bit, and kind of the ego side, being hung up in a little bit of that complex of, I'm the boss, I'm the leader, I should know this, I should be better than, than everyone else. And man, I can look back and think of example after example of where that just hurt my leadership. It didn't move our team forward. It didn't assist the mission and the vision of what we were going after. And so it's kind of that proverbial, if I could speak to the younger Terry, those would be some things that I would say, of being more transparent, being more open, and realizing is that we're not going to be the best at everything. Understand where our strengths are and invest in those. That's one that just pops up of many mistakes in that area over time that I look back on, and I would do different today. A lot of that is self-awareness, right? A lot of that goes into us spending the energy and the time of really understanding what is our core strengths, what are our core talents, and being able to focus at that. And when we know what those are, we inverse know what our talents and strengths aren't. And that's where we can learn from others and start surrounding ourselves with people that are really good at things that we might not be really good at. And embracing that and leaning into that. I think about some areas in my own leadership that's not strong, and I immediately think about one of my team leaders that's been with me now for about 8 or 9 years. And he is one of the most amazing leaders in this area. And I learn from him, I grow from him, and I have very specific conversations with him about how he does what he does and how he thinks in those areas. And that just makes me better. But it requires me as a leader, and this is a guy that works for me, so I'm his boss, but it requires me as a leader to be open with that and to have that vulnerable and honest conversation of telling one of my team members is like, you are better than me at this area, and I value that, and how can I learn from you? That's something that I wish that I would have been more open to and had that type of wisdom, many years ago.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Um, I recognize when you said recognizing your own strength and your weakness, and then thinking about others. I think that beautifully displayed what the Bible tells us about unity, us being the body of Christ, and recognizing that each of us have our own part, our own gift, our own talent. And once we recognize that, I think we become better leaders at that, like you said, knowing that we can't do everything, we can't be the best at everything. But if you find someone else that complement your team, and it helps your leadership better because you recognize their work, their significance, and being a part and contributing. Man, I love that. I once watched an interview, or really heard an interview of Craig Groeschel, the pastor of Life Church, and he said there are some leaders who are better at starting, and then there are some who are better at building, and then there's some who are better at sustaining. And I immediately fell in love with this quote because it's going to become one of my mottos of recognizing where I'm good at. And so I want to ask you, what does that mean? And then how do we recognize that for ourselves and then for others?
Yeah. So you're spot on, Craig. My pastor and the senior pastor here at Life Church is an amazing leader, and he embodies this and models it for all of us so well. And ultimately, what that statement is what we were just talking about. It's understanding who you are, what your gifts are, what your talents are, what your gifts are, and leaning into those. And what he broke up there of starting, building, and sustaining, kind of three different attributes of building a team or building an organization or building something, if you will, requires kind of three different mindsets. Kind of your entrepreneur in that starting phase, and from that standpoint, you've got kind of your producer type, which is the builder, that's kind of your activator and get in and spin it all up. But then there's the sustaining, which is a bit more of your integrator and a bit more of your administrator, that's systems focused and integrating it all and can kind of sustain that. All of those are really, really important. But all of those aren't inherently a single person. All of those are kind of consistent within a team, but not in an individual person. And we need to recognize in that life cycle of an organization or a team, of where do we fit in that. Your biblical example of Paul talking about that the body and the arm can't be the leg, and the head doesn't need to be the ear, and understanding which part we are. Is all about that self-awareness, and being okay with that, and realizing that I need to be the best me that I can be, and stop kind of focusing on maybe attributes or others that we can wake up and wish we were more like, and transfer away from me being the best me to me trying to be someone else, which is very harmful, that we don't need to do. And so yeah, Craig models that really, really well. He challenges all of us to be focused on that and to think about that, and to lean into those strengths, and really embody that. So I'm honored to be a part of an organization, Life Church, that models that, and just is really focused on that, which is fun to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. When I think about Life Church, I sort of think about YouVersion as well as the Bible app. You guys are all together as one organization.
I
Um,
wore
but
my
one,
I wore my
yeah,
shirt for you, so
yeah, camp. But when we think about that, I think immediately about Bible engagement and how yeah, that the organization valued Bible engagement and pulling people into the Bible and studying the Bible, and then not only just studying the Bible, but applying the Bible to their life. Um, I immediately asked, what ways or how can we as a church or a leader increase Bible engagement within our ministry?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love when you were describing that. You kind of started with the knowledge and the awareness part, but then you transitioned into the application. The application part, which is, I think, so important. And your question is increased Bible engagement in our ministries, which I think is really important. And what I hope that produces is the tangible fruit that engagement should produce. Right? Is that if we are engaging in God's word, and it is a part of our lives, and it's in us, we should see the fruit of that. And so that's the important piece. So how do we do that? And how do we increase the engagement in our ministries? I think one of the first is that we need to bring that into our regular conversation inside of our ministries. Simple things that I do, that I know that all of my leaders do in my one-on-one times with my leaders. These are key questions that we have. So yes, I'm interested in what obstacles or roadblocks or areas in their practical roles that they're having, and how may I help them from that standpoint. But that the conversation shouldn't stay there. A lot of my one-on-one conversations is what is God teaching you? What are you spending your time reading right now, and what new areas is Christ challenging you in, and having those types of conversations from a leader standpoint, I think is one way to increase Bible engagement. Is to ask about it and have those conversations flow from leader to leader and from team member to team member to facilitate those conversations. I think is a great way to increase the engagement side. Some real practical things, would be plans with friends of do Bible reading plans as team members together to sharpen one another and create those conversations. And then some other pieces, because what we talk about is that we don't just want to take it in, we want to live it out. I think a lot of where that comes in is in storytelling, sharing the results and the stories that we get to be a part of and that we see on a regular basis. So tell the stories in your team meetings, in those times together. It's share, where are we seeing God move in a really big way? Where do we need God to move in a really big way? And have those conversations inside your teams and one-on-ones and your ministries. And I think that will be some real practical ways to increase that Bible engagement is just to start with the conversation and the relationships centered around
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, in all of it, it's being intentional in those relationship and seeking those relationship and seeking, whether it's an employee or another leader or just a person, a part of the church, is being intentional with them and asking them about their life and to see if they're actually applying and seeking that relationship. And in reality, discipleship in reality. Um, I love everything that you just said, and so I sort of want to wrap it up now. And ask you, the best advice that you've ever received, told, or maybe heard in your life.
it. Yeah. That's a really big question. So I'm actually going to play off of what you just mentioned about intentionality and another quote that Craig said that would easily fall in some of the best advice, because I think intentionality is important. Is that Craig said is that we all end up somewhere, but some of us will end up somewhere on purpose. And so just that thought is that we're all going to end up somewhere. But we can choose where we want to end up by being purposeful within that. And so bringing intentionality along the lines is going to create that map of where we're going to end up, because we're all going to end up somewhere. But only a few of us are going to end up somewhere on purpose. And so I think applying that to all areas of our lives, of being purposeful in our engagement with God's word and what that looks like, being purposeful in allowing that to pour out in those that we lead, being purposeful and intentional with being transparent and vulnerable and opening up. None of that's going to happen on accident. None of it. It's only gonna happen is that if we're thinking about it and being intentional about that. Self-awareness is not going to happen on accident. It's only going to happen with intentionality on purpose. And so bringing that purpose and intentionality to all aspects of our lives absolutely is going to fall in some of the best advice that I've ever given or received, and most importantly, applied. Because we can receive a lot of advice and a lot of feedback, but if we don't do something with that, then it's just that proverbial word potential. And I don't want to live in potential. I want to live in reality. And see all of what God desires for me and for the teams and my family come to reality. So.
Wow, that was so good. So good. Thank you, Terry, for joining us and just chatting with us. It was so awesome having you with us today. We'll definitely look forward to chatting with you again someday. And thank you.
Brandon, it was an honor. Thank you so much for having me, and be blessed, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you.